A bear family stepped into the road, bringing the truck to an abrupt stop. The driver was about to get out, frustrated, until he saw what they were protecting on the pavement. He froze. It wasn't just unexpected. It was something no human ever imagines finding among wild bears. Jack Merrill had driven this same mountain road for nearly 15 years, hauling timber through the Colorado Rockies with nothing but country radio and thermoses of black coffee to keep him company. That Tuesday afternoon was like any other, until it wasn't. The curve was sharp, but nothing he hadn't handled before. Then the brake screamed. 3 bears, a mother, and 2 cubs stood still as stone, blocking the lane. It wasn't mating season. It wasn't migration. They just stood there. He swore under his breath and reached for the door handle, ready to yell, throw a stick, anything to get them moving. But then his eyes narrowed. The mother bear wasn't threatening. She wasn't trying to escape either. She was shielding something, her massive body positioned like a sentinel over a small, still shape on the ground. It took Jack a second to process it. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't a lost dog or a pile of trash. It was a child, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, lying barefoot on the pavement. Her hair was tangled, her skin smudged with dirt, but she was unmistakably human. And the bears, they were guarding her. Jack didn't move. His hands tightened around the steering wheel, eyes locked on the strange tableau unfolding in front of him. The sun had dipped just enough to cast long shadows over the road, stretching the bear family's silhouettes like something out of a dream or a warning. The mother bear shifted slightly, her snout low, watching Jack with a stare that wasn't hostile, just firm. Her cubs lingered behind her, curious but obedient, and beneath her front paws lay the girl, not crying, not moving, just lying there with her eyes closed, as if asleep in the middle of a 2-lane highway. Jack's instinct screamed conflicting orders. He had to help her, but getting out of the truck meant walking straight into a wild bear's domain. He glanced around. No other vehicles, no cell service this high up, and dusk was coming in fast. He rolled down his window slowly, hoping maybe just the sound of his voice could break the standoff. "Hey!" he called out, voice cracking a little. "You all right, sweetheart?" The girl didn't respond. Neither did the bear, except for a deep, low grunt that reverberated through Jack's chest like a warning bell. And then the cubs did something that made Jack's heart thump against his ribs. One of them, smaller than the other, trotted toward the girl and gently nudged her shoulder with its snout. Protective, familiar, almost affectionate. Jack's breath caught. This wasn't just some random encounter. These bears weren't keeping her hostage. They were guarding her like she was one of their own. And in that moment, a memory surfaced. A flash of a face he hadn't seen in over a decade. Blonde curls, bare feet on wood floors. A daughter whose name still tasted like regret. And just like that, Jack wasn't thinking about wild animals anymore. He was thinking about the past clawing its way back onto the pavement. Jack knew he couldn't sit idle. Every second felt like an hour, the fading daylight wrapping the mountain road in shadows. He turned off the engine and stepped out cautiously, boots crunching on gravel. The bears didn't budge, but the mother's eyes followed him with unnerving precision. He kept his hands visible and his steps slow. "I'm not here to hurt her," he murmured, unsure if the words were more for himself or the creatures before him. The closer he got, the more details came into focus. The girl's dress was tattered and sun-bleached, her hair tangled with leaves. She had scratches on her legs, but no blood. And her chest, thank God, rose and fell. Still, Jack didn't dare get too close. The mother bear exhaled loudly, a sharp burst of air through her nose that made him freeze mid-step. He raised his hands higher, inching back. He was close enough now to see the girl's face. Even with the dirt, she was beautiful, her skin pale and delicate. Eyes closed, but her expression calm, almost serene. That's when the surreal nature of it truly hit him. The bear wasn't guarding a body. She was standing over a living, breathing human child, like a mother defending her cub. Like this wasn't strange at all. Like this was normal for them. Jack's mind reeled. Was this girl lost? Had she been raised by them? Escaped from somewhere? Was she even real? The wind picked up, rustling the pines around them. The cubs twitched their ears and shifted nervously, but they didn't leave her side. Neither did their mother. Jack's instinct to act collided with a primal fear. He couldn't just grab her, not without risking his own life or startling the animals, but he also couldn't just drive away and pretend this didn't happen. There was a girl on the road, a human girl, being protected by wild bears, and nobody knew but him. And then, in the thick silence, the girl's hand moved, just slightly, a twitch of the fingers. Jack saw it. So did the mother bear. She let out a softer grunt this time, almost tender, and stepped aside just enough for Jack to catch a full glimpse of the girl's face. He staggered back as if struck. The face was too familiar, too impossible. She looked exactly like his daughter, the one who vanished 14 years ago. Long before Jack Merrill was a long-haul driver, he was a father, a devoted one. Back then, he lived in a small town outside Durango, worked construction, and spent weekends coaching Little League. His daughter, Emily, had been his entire world. She was only 5 when she disappeared from their backyard one summer afternoon. Her doll left by the garden gate, like she'd simply wandered off into thin air. The search lasted months. Helicopters, dogs, news vans. Jack and his wife Tara grew into strangers, tied together by shared grief and empty hope. When the leads dried up, so did the marriage. Jack threw himself into work, anything to outrun the crushing silence of a home without laughter. Eventually, he left town altogether, started trucking, started forgetting, or at least pretending to. But now, staring down that lonely stretch of road with a girl's face burned into his mind, the past came back like a freight train. The shape of her nose, the color of her lashes, even the angle of her chin when she breathed, it all screamed Emily. Yet the math didn't work. His daughter would be nearly 20 now. This girl was 8, 9 at most. Still, the resemblance knocked the air from his lungs. Was it possible? Could Emily have survived somehow? Had she been taken, raised in the wild? Or was it just coincidence playing a cruel trick? Jack leaned against the truck, heart pounding. Maybe he was losing it, seeing what he wanted to see. But deep down, where logic couldn't reach, something inside him stirred, not just recognition, but connection. As if some invisible thread still tied him to his little girl, no matter how many years had passed. And then a memory broke through. Emily's voice, soft and insistent, asking him once, "Daddy, if I got lost, would the animals take care of me?" At the time, he laughed, told her bears weren't babysitters. But now, he wasn't so sure. Jack didn't drive away, he couldn't. Something unshakable had settled in his gut, a feeling he couldn't label. Not quite hope, not quite fear. So he pulled the rig off the shoulder, grabbed a blanket and a thermos, and set up camp just beyond the tree line, where he could keep the road in view without spooking the bears. The forest around him buzzed with its usual evening chorus. Crickets, wind through pine needles, distant owl calls. But layered beneath it was something more primal, a tension that prickled at his skin, as if the woods themselves were watching. From his vantage point, he saw the bear family settle down as darkness thickened. The girl curled up between the cubs, their bodies forming a warm, furry cocoon around her. The mother bear remained alert, her massive head turning slowly, eyes reflecting moonlight like twin lanterns. Jack had seen animals protect their own before, even grieve. But this was different. This was deliberate. She wasn't just tolerating the girl, she was defending her. As hours passed, Jack tried to make sense of it. Was this girl truly feral? Had she been raised in the wild all these years? It defied everything he knew. And yet, what else explained it? Sometime after midnight, As he leaned back against a tree trunk, a branch snapped somewhere to his left, not the kind of crack made by squirrels or falling pine cones. This was heavier, human. Jack went rigid. He reached for the old hunting knife he kept in his boot. Eyes scanning the shadows, he spotted movement. Just a flicker, deep in the woods, far beyond the bears. A figure. Watching. He stood slowly, heart hammering. "Who's there?" he called. Out. Silence. Then nothing. The shape was gone, but the feeling remained. He wasn't the only one keeping watch tonight. Morning came slow and pale, brushing the treetops with gold. Jack didn't sleep. His body was stiff, but his mind had been racing all night. As the sun broke through the trees, he scanned the area where he'd seen the figure vanish. No footprints, no broken branches, just that thick, needling feeling of being watched. Still, he couldn't shake the hunch. Someone else had been out here, and if this girl's presence was tied to something bigger, he had to find out what. After leaving a small pile of granola bars near the roadside, a peace offering or maybe a test, he veered into the trees, following the ridgeline that ran parallel to the road. He walked for over an hour before stumbling across a narrow, barely there trail. It looked like no one had used it in years. But something drew him in. At the end of the trail stood a rotting cabin, slouched under years of snow and neglect. Moss clung to its walls. Windows broken, door unlatched. Jack stepped inside, ducking under a sagging beam. The air was thick with dust and old wood smoke. A rusted stove sat cold in the corner, and on the table, a child's sweater, pink and faded. He picked it up with trembling hands. On the inside tag, smeared but still legible, was a name. Emily. Jack staggered backward, breath knocked clean from his lungs. He hadn't seen that sweater in over a decade. It had gone missing with her. The floorboards creaked above him. He froze. There was someone or something upstairs. Jack backed out of the cabin slowly, eyes fixed on the ceiling above. But whatever, or whoever, had been there was gone. Not a sound, not a trace. The silence was too complete to be natural, and it followed him like fog as he made his way back down the trail. He didn't go straight to the road. Instead, he took a detour into town, a one-gas station kind of place, called Red Willow Junction. It had that forgotten corner of America feel, rusted signage, cracked sidewalks, and folks who watched strangers from porches like they were measuring trouble. He stopped at a trading post with a coffee and firewood sign and met Clara, a soft-spoken woman in her 60s with silver braids and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When Jack hesitated to speak, she interrupted with a look that cut through years of silence. "You saw her," she said. Jack blinked. "Saw who?" "The girl. Out there, by the bears." The room shifted. Time slowed. Jack nodded, wary. "She... yours?" Clara chuckled, but not with humor. "No one owns her. She's wild now, but once maybe she was just a child." He sat down across from her, the coffee growing cold in his hands. Clara told him about the stories, ones passed down through generations of Ute and Navajo communities. Tales of the chosen lost, children taken by the forest, not by force, but by fate, protected by animals, raised in silence, kept alive by a bond few understood. "Most call it myth," she said. "But I've seen her 3 winters ago, thought I was dreaming. She never spoke, just looked at me like she knew something I didn't, and then the bear appeared behind her." Jack's voice trembled. "Is it possible she's mine?" Clara didn't flinch. "It's possible. But if she is, she's not the same girl you lost. Not anymore." Jack didn't answer. His thoughts returned to the way the girl moved, how naturally she fit beside those bears, like she belonged to them, or they belonged to her. And then Clara said something that chilled him to the bone. "She's learning to speak again," she murmured. "One word at a time. That's how they come back." Jack returned to the roadside with a mission now. He wasn't just a witness to something strange. He was a father reclaiming a connection. He spent the next 2 days camping nearby, watching the girl from a distance, never forcing contact. Every time she opened her eyes, she seemed less surprised to see him. He left small offerings, food, blankets, a hairbrush, each placed gently at the edge of the forest. The bears always inspected them first, the mother still wary but no longer hostile. Slowly, a rhythm developed, a cautious peace. On the third evening, just as twilight melted into night, Jack sat near the fire, humming a song from Emily's childhood. A lullaby, something soft, almost forgotten. The melody drifted through the trees like a memory. That's when he heard it. Footsteps, not animal, human, small. He turned. She was there, standing only a few feet away, barefoot in the dirt, her arms thin and tan from years of sun. Her face was less smudged now, more defined. Her eyes didn't look wild, they looked watchful, a kind of guarded recognition. Jack stood slowly, tears already welling up. "Emily," he whispered. She didn't answer, just looked at him, looked through him. He knelt, level with her eyes. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything. I just need to know, do you remember me?" She tilted her head, then glanced behind her. The mother bear stood quietly between trees, waiting. Jack didn't move. And then, just as his heart began to ache with the silence, she stepped forward, her lips parted. One word fell out, soft as a feather hitting earth. "Dad!" Jack broke. He wrapped her in his arms and sobbed, not from certainty, but from the fragile, aching hope that somehow, against every rule of the natural world, his daughter had come back to him. They didn't rush. Jack stayed with the girl, Emily, by the roadside for hours, just holding her, letting the moment breathe. The bears watched from the shadows, never intervening. It was as if they understood something unspoken had passed between the two. Eventually, Jack called for help. A ranger from the nearby station arrived first, then paramedics, and finally child services. By the time the officials showed up, the bears were gone, disappeared into the woods like ghosts. Emily didn't speak again. She followed Jack, clung to him, but when strangers tried to touch her or ask questions, she recoiled. They put a blanket around her, took her blood pressure, but her eyes kept drifting toward the trees, toward where the bears had vanished. The next day, tests began, medical exams, DNA analysis, psychological evaluations. Jack stayed through it all. When the results came back, the world tilted. She was his. Biologically, genetically, a perfect match, no doubt. But the doctors were baffled. Her motor skills were delayed, her language minimal, and yet her survival instincts were razor sharp. Her body bore signs of old injuries healed naturally, and her immune system had adapted in strange, powerful ways. She was human, but somehow something more. And that raised a bigger question. What now? Authorities wanted to place her in a state facility to study, to rehabilitate, to reintegrate. But Emily didn't want reintegration. She wanted the trees. She wanted silence. And when she heard the word institution, she panicked for the first time, screamed, bit, fled from the room. Jack made a decision. He took her and left. No fanfare, just packed his truck and disappeared into the road that brought her back. To him, for days they traveled, looking for quiet, for safety. But no matter where they stopped, Jack could see it, the edge in her eyes, the pull toward wildness. And one morning, in a rest area surrounded by tall pine, she looked up at him and simply said, "I miss them." It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't childish. It was a truth so pure it cracked something inside him. She didn't belong in this world, not entirely, not anymore. They returned to the mountains, not with a plan, not with promises, just the quiet understanding that some homes don't have walls, and some families don't look the way we expect them to. It was late October when Jack found the old ridge again. The trees were golden, the air crisp. Emily hadn't spoken since that morning in the rest area, but she hadn't resisted the drive either. She just stared out the window, hand pressed to the glass, like waiting for a signal only she could hear. They camped for 3 days. Jack didn't ask questions. He just stayed close, cooked over the fire, and watched her tilt her head at every distant sound. On the 4th day, just after dawn, she stood at the edge of the clearing and pointed. There they were, the Bear family. They emerged like a memory, quiet, calm, whole. The mother bear stepped forward, paused. No growl, no rush, just recognition. Jack knew what this was. Emily turned to him, eyes glistening. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "Can I go?" Jack's throat tightened. He wanted to say no, wanted to scream it. But he looked at her, this girl made of his blood and years of mystery, who had survived the impossible, who had been loved by something wild and ancient. And he nodded. She didn't run. She walked, slow, purposeful. The cubs greeted her, like a sister. The mother bear stepped aside, and Jack, he stayed frozen in place, heart split wide open. As she disappeared into the woods, swallowed by leaves and silence, he whispered, "I'll be right here." He would wait, as long as it took, and for the first time in 14 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, she had found her way home. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Which part of the story moved you the most? Subscribe for more true-to-heart stories. And remember, your voice matters here. We're listening.